Hello, greetings, and salutations, everyone. This is Brandon Peppler, coming at you again for part 2 of our Harry Potter commentary marathon. I will be doing up the theatrical cut of Chamber Secrets, and then along with that, I'll be doing up personal experience info plus bits of trivia between the film and the book. I wanted to give a bit of a late shout out to one of the other YouTubers called The Dom, who has done Lost in Translation with all 8 of the Harry Potter films and done extensive analysis of each of them, such as what was still kept, what was left out, what was added in, and what was changed. So with that, for those of you who are getting yourselves ready, get your treats and get yourselves all relieved, and be sure to pause, and then I will cue you on when to begin. Alright, all you Gryffindors, Hufflepuffs, Ravenclaws, and Slytherins out there, if those of you who are ready to begin, we will start at the end of the count. 1, 2, 3, play. And we are just about to see the Warner Brothers logo just showed up. This was another film I saw in the theaters. I think of all the Harry Potter films I saw in the theaters, I only saw 3 of them, including this and Prisoner of Azkaban. Now, in terms of this one, I kind of felt like it held on to adaptation pretty good. And with this, the acting has improved significantly. I mean, given that, of course, Daniel, Rupert, and Emma were just starting out their careers in these films. Where did that photo come from? But I wouldn't think that having Hedwig be stuck in a cage would classify as being a use of underage magic. Because after all, Hedwig is very much... I mean, the whole point is that she wouldn't actually be considered as too magical, given the aspect of... I mean, I would think that Hedwig's a hyper-intelligent owl, given the circumstances of being attached to the wizarding world. And that she would at least have some form of training as a post-owl, given that she also is under the care of Harry. Okay, you had to bring up the second bedroom in this film. I mean, just so you know, I don't do any riffing unless, I don't know, it's something for a joke. But you would think that they would, of course, do that in the course of Philosopher's Stone. Typical Dursleys always trying to move up in society. When I first saw Dobby in this, just how he is designed, he kind of looked like he was either like from the Henry Selick movies, like with the stop motion ones, or like an illustration from a children's book, which makes him a lot more, I don't know, pretty whimsical in terms of being a house elf. So, Chamber of Secrets. It was another book I had read. At this point, it's very much the worst birthday chapter, given that at this point, Harry just returned back to the Dursleys' home. He has been expecting letters from Ron, Hermione, and Hagrid. But oddly enough, they haven't been arriving, and the worst part is he can't be out of the house. Can't even do any out-of-school studies, given that it's kind of a force of routine to at least incorporate out-of-class study, especially in preparation for the future classes. I mean, what would someone do if they were forced to have all of their belongings, a lot of their study material locked up forcefully, and they wind up going behind in their studies at a wizarding school? I mean, that would be just embarrassing, especially if you are a witch or wizard that wants to excel, and that you ultimately struggle so much because you weren't given much of preparation. Japanese golfer joke. Well, I would think that probably Vernon is something of a bigot. I was thinking like a bigot in general. Like, of course, the racist joke, and on top of having discrimination against the magical community. Alright, so I am aware that this point would have a deleted scene in that kind of extends and kind of builds up the suspense, where Dobby lifts up the pudding. At this point, the Dursleys would attempt to distract the guests. Yeah, it just goes by too fast, because it just seems more comical instead of suspenseful. Another thing that's left out was the use of underage magic notice. And that was kind of where the Dursleys would figure out that Harry wasn't supposed to do magic out of school. And here are our favorite Weasleys, folks. So I think as the films got progressed further along, it started becoming less lighthearted, and it got to where it became a lot more bleaker and darker, which of course transitions quite great in terms of how the life of Harry ends up progressing, because the more he ends up coming to the school and integrating himself into the Wizarding world, the Second Wizarding War starts to pick up more and more, and it's quite surprising how Vernon took the fall so lightly. Just thwomp right on that bush. Oh, then again, he is a man with extra cushioning. Makes a lot of sense. More cushion for the flopping. Welcome to the burrow. Wah wah wah. Molly Weasley. There are a lot of interesting jokes involving Molly Weasley in terms of being a character, but I would think that, I would think she is an excellent character, especially given the aspect of being a motherly figure. A jumper on the cat. Oh no. Well, we expect Ginny's developed a crush on Harry, even after only meeting him once. But then again, the boy who lived, who doesn't know him, and then again, to think that Ginny, of all people, would actually fall for him at such a young age. But the burrow, from what I understand, from what I remember, so Molly Weasley has specializes in household and healing spells. And given, of course, just the idea of a lot of the spells being incorporated inside the household, given, like, of course, the scrubbed cooking pan and the knitting. Oh. Well, you'd think that Errol would be a very old owl. Mm-hmm. Oh, and the one joke I've heard about was putting Molly Weasley putting Chuck Norris to shame. You would, I mean, if Bruce Lee was the only person that managed to whoop Chuck Norris, then if Molly Weasley happened to be Chuck Norris's mother, he would wet himself. a sweet lady, but you don't want to take her off. Oh, and right here is where there's a specific change. Yeah, that's where the change was instead. Instead of like going, instead of coughing and attempting to say Diagon Alley. Well, the thing is that, for those of you that are familiar with the books, the fluid powder is thrown in first, which sparks the green fire, and then they walk in. Then they would have to say the location. But of course, I mean, they kind of changed it up, and from how Harry put it in this film, he said Diagon Alley too fast, and it came up as diagonally. And then he dropped the fluid powder. But in the book, he ended up coughing as a result of the fluid powder and ended up mispronouncing. On this right here is supposed to be where another deleted scene comes in right after Harry gets trapped, as you can see. But what happened is that there was the first appearance of Lucius and Draco Malfoy. In the instance where the former has a list on hand selling a lot of his personal effects, given that there was investigations going on through the Ministry of Magic. So, in essence, Lucius was trying to sell some of those personal effects to avoid any suspicion in the investigation raids. Oh, that's right, the Reparo spell. I would think that the Oculus Reparo one is, of course, more specific in terms of being a repair charm. Kenneth Branagh, famous writer, actor, and director, as Gilderoy Lockhart. That's another thing that I'm very fascinated with in a lot of the Harry Potter films, is that with the more experienced actors, a lot of them have backgrounds in Shakespearean theater. But, Brenna, I knew, like, a number of his films, like Murder on the Orient Express, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and him being Trausco in Valkyrie with Tom Cruise. Oh, hey, you think he wanted that life? It's not like he had a choice. Lucius Malfoy, played by Jason Isaacs, folks. I haven't seen much of anything. I think at this point this was the very first time I've actually seen him in anything. But I'm very sure he was in a number of other films too. Probably some I had seen. According to his film resume, he's been in a number of films like Dragonheart with Mel Gibson. He's even been in Armageddon by Michael Bay, and again in The Patriot with Mel Gibson. Jeez. Black Hawk Down. Very, very interesting. So I would think that this is pretty much the highlight of his career, being such a bad wizard. So, well, comes to show you that the Malfoys have a history of bigotry towards Muggles. I mean, it's very unfortunate because a lot of the wizarding community has survived given the combined efforts of both magical and non-magical relationships. That's how some families manage to survive through some instances of family members being half-blood. And that's another interesting thing about Harry Potter's. I don't know, it kind of follows through like with how Star Wars happened. Like how the Force all hinges upon genealogy. And such as the instance with like the mutant gene in X-Men. Or how there's like the magical gene in the Wizarding World universe. But I would think that how would genealogy have to do with magic? I mean, that's kind of the confusing thing. I mean, I would kind of think that probably magic can be pretty much inherent in anybody, depending on like certain circumstances, but I don't know. But I mean, if any of you have any thoughts on the genealogy of the Wizarding World and how it works, I mean, you're welcome to comment it, because I sometimes try to scratch my head or work my head around the whole aspect of how there's the magical gene. I mean, given the aspect, of course, there was... I mean, like, of course, you have pure blood, some Muggle-borns, half-bloods. I mean, as I've mentioned, that, like, of course, given the instance that Hagrid is half-giant, and even Professor Flitwick is half-goblin. But I would think that the pureblood families associated in the wizarding world also come from very wealthy backgrounds, and I would think that the Potters kind of fall into that category too, but they are more open-minded towards interblood relationships, I mean, especially with people associated in the non-magical world. Yeah, that moment was added in where Harry was kind of falling out of the car, probably to add more tension. Probably would have been a good idea to learn more advanced spells. I mean, even if it's at a personal leisure. Like in the instance of Hermione. So the character analysis of the famous trio. So I think in terms of just the entire story itself, I mean, you would think that Harry is the central character and protagonist, and with that, even Hermione and Ron would be classified as so, because even they have their own struggles, and they are tied in with Harry's story too. But the characters end up leaning towards certain tropes, like for instance the tropes of logic, reason, and emotion. Such as the instance with Ron being emotional, Hermione being logical, and Harry being more reasoning, given his intuitive mindset. God. Filch. When I first saw this, and with Alan Rickman being as Snape, he seemed more strict than malicious, given just how it differs significantly to where he was portrayed in Philosopher's Stone. Now, from what I remember, there was another deleted scene. I think it takes place right before this, where the boys were inside of Filch's office, and that they found a quick spill. Well, at least Harry found a quick spill envelope, indicating that there was another classification of Wizarding Blood connection, the squib. Oh, for those of you that are not familiar with it, it is essentially a witch or a wizard that is of magical bloodline connection, but has no magical prowess or ability. So, in essence, pretty much reduced to being a non-magical person. And it seems very sad in most respects, because just the very idea of being in the wizarding world and born into it and not being able to perform magic. And there is also the Obscurals, which will be covered in the Fantastic Beast films. It's basically a result of holding back magical ability and causing it to create a sort of abomination called the Obscurus. I just leave him there. But yeah, when I first saw this, I originally thought the mandrakes were going to be kind of baby-like, but just how they're seen like deformed roots, it's almost frightening. Sometimes I wonder what the mandrakes would look like when they matured. Yay, we're doomed! Colin Creevey, portrayed by Hugh Mitchell, who himself has been, of course, an actual photographer for some time. And I think there must have been another deleted scene inside the first herbology class, where Harry meets up with Justin Finch Fletchley for the first time, which will later progress into later on in the dueling club. The Howler. Yeah, I was surprised with how it turned out, especially at the end. It's pretty funny just how Molly Weasley's voice just kind of transitioned over towards Jeannie, congratulating her, and I was going like, that's pretty much very out of character for the the Howler. I mean, I would just think it would give it its worst to Ron, using Molly's voice, and then just shred apart or explode. And then there was another deleted scene, which would ultimately be, of course, the biography quiz on Lockhart. So yeah, see what you can make of them just before you decide to teach them what they actually are, because there wouldn't be anybody that would be affiliated with them. And wouldn't that be put under care magical creatures? But then again, I mean, who knows? It's Cornish pixies. Jeez, all those pictures. Narcissus. Much? Burn! Oh. And I think the Eat Slugs thing was like an amalgamation of moments. It's very unfortunate how the charm ended up, or Hex ended up rebounding against Ron, and he had to, of course, gag out all those slugs out of his body. Poor guy. Mm-hmm. Another change that was incorporated was how Hermione would know the term mudblood. It kind of cuts out Ron having given the actual description of it. But I think with him having the rebound slug curse, I don't know, it kind of makes sense in a way, but I don't know. In the book, Hermione would be unfazed just from the idea alone, because she wouldn't actually know the terminology. But in this instance, her knowing about it in the film version, you can actually see that she was it seemed that Draco would actually hit a nerve. But, I mean, even despite being a Muggleborn, you could definitely tell that Hermione is a very accomplished and competent wizard in terms of magical ability. I mean, even being as more book smart savvy. Upon reading the book and seeing this film, when I heard that voice, I was thinking it was Voldemort. Spiders! For those of you that just heard that, that was a Nostalgia Critic reference. He did a review on the 1990s or early 2000s version of Lost in Space, and the one of the recurring jokes was him portraying as Gary Oldman's Dr. Smith. And Bill on Skin Dead Cat? Yeah! You wretched, magical little boy, I will shackle you by your ankles and watch your face turn blue. Oh, and what would that be? How would you know? You see any blood on his hands? Check them. Wrong place, wrong time, indeed. Indeed. Another case has begun. I mean, you wouldn't think it until, like, maybe after viewing this a few times, but it kind of seems like Dumbledore seems to test our trio. That's a good point. That's one thing that kind of gets mixed up. I'm like, it's pronounced Verto or Ferroverto. I mean, you can't quite really tell unless you hear clearly. Another instance of amalgamation of scenes. The Chamber of Secrets was supposed to be taught by the in the history of magic class, but I would think they probably wanted to give Maggie Smith more screen time as Professor McGonagall, so to share the history of the chamber. And it's not the only hidden chamber, but there was also the cursed vaults that were, of course, mentioned in the Hogwarts mystery game, which I had mentioned in the previous commentary. Now with that, so with the cursed vaults, it seems that each of those incorporates some level of dark magic, and that the whole story itself, I wouldn't see it just like a regular mobile game. In such a way, it could be probably seen as kind of like one of the Choices games, or rather as a visual novel, given that it connects with the Wizarding World, and that even the narrative itself follows with the visual novels, as performed on many gaming excuse me, as performed on some gaming consoles, like a lot of the Japanese visual novels. I mean, some game critics would probably compare that game to like the Kim Kardashian or whatever it's called, the Kardashian game. But in many ways, I would think that while the game is flawed, it does have plenty of merits because it expands the wizarding world in many degrees, such as new spells, new creatures, maybe. There's also the aspect of what kinds of domains would be inside of Hogwarts, besides just such as the Hidden Chamber Secrets, or the Room of Requirement, or the other secret passages that are inside of the castle. Another instance of rough housing in the Quidditch pitch, folks. So another aspect of Quidditch that I forgot to mention is that it was also even translated into gaming. Like there was the I forgot the name of it, but it kind of deals with the World Quidditch Cup, or the Quidditch World Cup, by which the story involves a lot of the different national teams. You gotta have a very precise eye. Yes. And I think they stretched out the bludger chase with padding, given that, I mean, I'm surprising a lot of the pitch structure still remains intact. Excuse me. And what would you know about ballet, Malfoy? Flying to the superstructure. But another instance of John Williams' genius. I mean, just him being as a composer to both Star Wars and Harry Potter. I mean, not just that, but even I've been exposed to his music in the Jurassic Park films too, notably the first and The Lost World. And of course, Home Alone. I mean, you would think that there are like a lot of connections in terms of film. I mean, I think the big thing about fandom is like you would have all this extensive knowledge of the different franchises, but you would also know some major connections. Ooh. Sorry. Tusken Raider joke. Let's hope not. Oh. Should have tried a pisky, brother. Oh. Oh, even that just makes my it makes me shudder. Ugh. Grow. Grow. I don't know if I should say that. Because I'm trying to keep this at least like general audience as possible. Well, I mean, Dobby is not such a bad character in many respects. I mean, he does have good intentions, but in many ways, it's fair to say that while his intentions are good, how he does things just seem very questionable. Well, of course, given being a house elf and being a servant to a long existing wizarding family. So, In the last commentary, I mentioned that I played the Philosopher's Stone games. I never had played this source. I never had played the Chamber of Secrets games before, but the concept was very much the same. Collecting beans for cards, finding secrets, even performing spells, and even performing the Quidditch minigames on top of it. And one thing I should mention that this happens to be the very last time we see Richard Harris perform in any film, because soon after Chamber of Secrets he unfortunately passed away. Moaning Myrtle, played by Shirley Henderson. It's very strange, though, an actress being of her age, and yet she could still manage being as a teenage student. I think a lot of it comes down to, like, of course, the mannerisms. All the girls going ooh and ah. The Dueling Club. And that was just another recent feature incorporated to the Hogwarts mystery game. Who cares? There is also another circumstance that kind of got me a little confused, given that after carefully having heard the audiobook for Chamber of Secrets multiple times, and learning more of the Wizarding World media, I noticed that certain spells had certain colors. It kind of seems like the matter and a lot of the spells incorporated into this were just seemed general, and there's no indication of what spells were what. And Rictusempra is supposed to be the tickling curse. I mean, Malfoy would have been rolling on the floor. So the character seen before you, the Hufflepuff, is Justin Finch Fletchley. It really made no sense on how we actually see Harry performing Parseltongue. You would think that in terms of the film, you would actually see him talking this as he did in Philosopher's Stone. But I think in most respects it would have been interesting seeing probably a mixture of like the Parseltongue blending in with his normal speech. Boa constrictor. But who really knows? Unless someone would actually have extensive knowledge on the Potter family. Then again, around this time, the family lines were not fully established. So, another aspect that would have been explored was the idea of the use of blood for a lot of the notices. Now, I understand there was another deleted scene somewhere, but it involved Harry talking with Hagrid, and Hagrid having found chickens that were killed. And this kind of ties in with the messages being written in blood from the chickens that were slaughtered. The smarters are munching row by row. Beep beep. Beep beep. One of the fascinating things about the passwords leading up to Dumbledore's office is that much incorporates some kind of sweet that Dumbledore fancies, such as the incense of the sherbet lemon. For those of you here in the States, I'm pretty sure you would pretty much know this nod, but around here in the States, the sherbet lemons are considered as lemon drops. In itself is a non-magical candy that Dumbledore happens to fancy. Another major difference, as indicated, well, of course, a lot of the comparisons I've driven up were taken up from the Dom, of course. So as with my last commentary, I would like to say that everything has been. I would like to give him credit for a lot of the analysis and the comparisons between the books and films. I mean, now, as a little side note, I like to give credit where credit is due, as especially with my first commentary of how I'd like to give Oliver Harper, Geekvolution, and Movie Preview Critic as my major inspirations for doing audio commentaries. And here comes the aw moment. Aww. My soft spot for baby animals. I mean, especially with Norbert and, of course, Baby Fox. Oh my goodness. Little guy. But again, I'd like to give credit where credit is due, and I'm not one that would want to plagiarize or steal ideas from others. So I like to give reference to a lot of the inspiration behind a lot of my work, because without those people, I wouldn't get the inspiration. I mean, even being an artist, I do like to give notice to the inspirations that help me give conception. There was another deleted scene that should have been incorporated, at least in the director's cut, because Hermione ended up managing to nick some uniforms from the laundry. Hence, that was how Harry and Ron got the uniforms that they needed. And with that, it would make a lot of sense as opposed to just stealing their uniforms and robes. But so the instance of the uniforms would have taken place a little bit before Hermione starts serving up the polyjuice potion, because she would have already have them folded and ready for Harry and Ron. I mean, it would make sense for them to kind of wear loose-fitting uniforms, given the fact they would have to, of course, properly portray Crabbe and Goyle. So Harry is as Goyle, and Ron is as Crabbe. What I didn't understand was that they still sound like themselves, but even after the transfer, they still sound like themselves, but in the books. I mean, you would think that they would sound exactly as the people they transformed into. It kind of seems like the very idea of polyjuice potion seems like the ultimate concept of achieving total mischief, especially when you are as someone else. You may be a wealthy wizard, but as long as a Weasley is a prefect, you should know where the line is drawn, even if your father is a school governor. So the Slytherin Common Room, from what I remember, is located in the dungeons, just as the instance where the Hufflepuff one is located near the kitchens of the school. And that in the instance of the Slytherin Common Room, there is supposed to be sort of like a window that overlooks the underwater of the Black Lake. When I realized this, my major concern was, what would happen if the glass kind of breaks and then the entire common room floods with the Black Lake? Well, all those precious minutes lost. Well, I mean, you would think it wouldn't take too long to be inside of the common room, but it kind of seems like it went by so fast. But then again, they lost many just trying to come toward the Slytherin common room, and having been stopped by Percy. Oh no. Talk about being backfired. Coughing up furballs. Well, you would think she got plenty upset. Or it could be something else. At his chest. To think that a mature woman would actually fit the role of a teenage girl so well. I mean, especially when portraying Myrtle. Yeah, so there was a lot of stuff that was omitted, especially with the dwarfs being dressed up as cupids, and Harry accidentally spilling his ink after being tripped over or falling over. And then the inks suddenly dissolving into the diary pages.
I killed everyone you loved instead. It was your wedding day. The day time stopped. That's Sarah. My wife. So
And that is a good instance of good filmmaking right there. Showing instead of telling. I mean, especially to think that this diary has magical properties to allow any reader to magically jump into the pages and then see the memory. So around this time, Dumbledore would still be as a Hogwarts professor, while the previous headmaster, Armando Dippet, was present. You can actually see him briefly in the background when he was kind of walking beside Dumbledore. So through this, you would think that there's probably a lot of compositing in terms of like the filtering being done. Kind of gives it like the classic monotone film effect where like, or where at least like there's like the classic grayscale black and white photograph aspect. And with this, it kind of makes it seem like it is very classic in its own merit. I mean, especially with how, of course, being written from a diary. And then it contrasts with the more present version of Harry, seeing the past version of Hogwarts, along with the like the older staff and even the young Tom Riddle. Oh. Stronger and quicker and smarter? Well, it comes to show you, never underestimate a Hufflepuff. I mean, even when it comes to the Hufflepuff Quidditch team. Which would be very unfortunate. And where would the students go? So I was having trouble trying to distinguish like the type of breed that Fang was supposed to be. From what I heard and from what I remember in the books and even in the trading card game, Fang was supposed to be a black boarhound. It's quite clear that Fang in the film looks nothing like a black boarhound. Now I don't quite know what kind of breed he is, but I can probably research it real fast. So, animals can sense evil. Well, I heard Fang growl, so it kind of hints that there is something really offish about Lucius. Those who ask for it. Well, quite clear you would know that Dumbledore would of course know that the boys would be there. Quite a brilliant man, Dumbledore. Spiders! Follow the spiders! Follow the spiders! Follow the spiders! The spiders are marching up the wall. Click, click. Click, click. Ron, I kind of feel bad with how he's portrayed in the films. Like, it kind of seems like a lot of his good stuff has been either cut out or given to other characters. Because, I mean, in many respects, Ron is an important character. I mean, omitting a lot of his classic stuff just kind of makes him almost like the fifth wheel. Or... And I was quite surprised with how this was actually done. Like, I mean, of course, the spiders are all CGI, and of course, with Rupert and Daniel having to walk on all these areas, It'd be fair to say that the spiders have to try to walk around them or at least evade them. Aragog, the Acromantula. To think, after all those years, he has grown in immense size. So, I think there was another deleted scene just before the boys ended up encountering Aragog. Or it would have been a little after they were trying to run, but I think it was before where they encountered the Weasley's car. Yeah, I was right. It was before they encountered Aragog. I'm thinking that car is probably a distant relative to Herbie. I'm given that it has a bit of a mind of its own. But then again, tampering with magic inside of that particular car, yeah, you would think it has some kind of level of sentience. flying car takes off again! Screw you guys, I'm going home! Poor battered up car. Yep. Very unfortunate though. Being expelled, his wand broken. The Basilisk, better also known as the King of Serpents. So according to the background of the basilisk, it's been said that a basilisk only could be hatched by laying a chicken egg underneath a toad, and that not only spiders flee before it, but it only flees from the crowing of a rooster because it's been known to be fatal to it. And that's when the puzzle pieces start to fall. I mean, even the aspect that even the basilisk would be a parcel mouth. And that was how Harry managed to actually hear it. He has been put to the test. Because it kind of seems like the staff would be suspicious of Lockhart, given his incompetency as being not only a wizard, but also as a school teacher. You could probably, of course, obviously tell from all of his supposed feats, quote unquote. capital F, fraud. Lockhart the fraud, you are a terrible wizard. You deserve to get put away for your fakery. Does Myrtle have to be so bashful and flirty towards Harry, even being dead for 5 decades? Well, it just goes to show you that Myrtle looked directly into the eyes of the basilisk. Some time ago, I've watched a video from Film Theory, as sort of a partner to the Game Theory series, that the Chamber of Secrets was supposed to be used for like a means of protection, and that it's supposed that Southern, rather than building it as a weapon, or as a means of housing a weapon such as Basilisk, it could have been used as a means of protection for the school. But in all instances, the school has a number of contributions from each of the founders. Well, I know, for instance, that Godric Gryffindor was the one who supplied the sorting hat, to which helped the future students end up being sorted in their respected houses, and that Rowena Ravenclaw contributed to the architecture of the school. In the instance of Helga Hufflepuff, she incorporated a lot of the recipes for the school meals and feasts. I'll probably have to dive a little bit into Slytherin's contributions, probably highlighted in the 3rd commentary. That's the basilisk skin, alright. Don't be so sure. Whoops! That didn't go so well. And he had to seal them off. Good job, Lockhart. Bumbling fool of a wizard. Hello. Well, at least it wasn't a brick, wasn't it? Quite honestly, just how that vault door was created, that is incredible. I mean, just the idea of each of the individual snakes reeling back and the other one just coiling around the innermost ring of the vault door as the sort of locking mechanisms. That is just amazing. And in terms of the chamber, as seen here, I've heard that there was like a lot of budgetary cuts. I think the Dom touched up on this. And another major difference was the incorporation of Slytherin's head as opposed to a full body statue.
So let's do it.
Pretty much so. But, yeah, you would think that Riddle would be a lot more hidden and more reserved when he was bringing up the idea of the events that are happening in the castle. Like, such as you would think that he would, of course, try to be more cautious of his words, as opposed to just blurring out the use of mudblood instead of muggleborn. But it kind of... And I would think that it would be it'd be easing in, slowly revealing how malicious that Riddle would actually be. I am Lord Voldemort. Fanboy speech. And so help has been called. Here it comes. I'll peck its eyes out! Wah, 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 wah. Ooh, that was too close. Oh no, a dead end! Oh, thanks a lot, George. Thanks a lot. One thing that kind of confuses me was the aspect of, like, when I first saw this, what would happen if Voldemort's spirit ended up merging with young Riddle's body after it becomes a physical form rather than a memory? I wonder how that would happen. And when I first saw the incarnation of Gryffindor's sword, I mean, I was thinking it would be like a massive claymore type sword. Like, it would have, of course, some of the decorations of it as seen. But I would think that with how the sword is designed, it's more ceremonial as opposed to being an actual proper weapon. I mean, kind of in the instance that it's good to be brave and chivalrous, but it's also good to have the notion that there doesn't need to be any kind of violence. Only one way to stop it all. For some reason I heard a familiar hiss. I mean, just that first opening of where... Oh, there it goes again. I think we have ourselves a bit of reused sound effect. The ignition of a lightsaber. I mean, instead of like the activation of like the classical ones, I mean, it's more like the more recent ones. I mean, like kind of like the ones that, like how Darth Maul's lightsaber activates. Just how the I just can't help but find the portrayal of a phoenix in the Wizarding world as remarkably beautiful creatures. It's incredible just how they're portrayed. But, I mean, just in such an instance of Fawkes being as portrayed, it's... I mean, even the use of a puppet portraying Fawkes is amazing. It kind of makes you... actually makes me miss practical effects. I mean, yeah, it's good to have CG every once in a while just to help augment effects, but with recent years, in terms of CG, it's kind of been overused, and a lot of people have been desensitized by it. Oh? So, as earlier mentioned, so on the night that Voldemort tried to kill Harry, on the night he got that scar, not many people would actually know the significance of it, but it's been said that, of course, given that Harry was touched by the killing curse that was unleashed by Voldemort, but it had rebounded, leaving behind the scar. It actually has been indicated that the lightning bolt scar matches with the wand wave pattern of a lightning bolt. Uh-oh. No wonder Dobby gets so much trouble. He is constantly abused by the Malfoys. Are you sure about that? Or is it a select few of students? Tongue twist there. Yeah. Dobby has been signaling Harry messages. Oh. Added dialogue. Poor little guy. I feel bad for Dobby for all the mistreatment he received from, of course, Lucius. Once again, Harry showing his prowess, his natural prowess as a detective, with deductive reasoning. Now, the boom! You like that? But you would think that Lucius would be more cautious. I mean, he wouldn't go around killing off Harry with the killing curse. I mean, given the instance, he would want to keep himself in check as to avoid any suspicions, especially his past with Voldemort. And so, we are at the very final stretch of where we see the late, great Richard Harris as Dumbledore. As mentioned, he passed away after the film was made. And, I mean, with that, it really shook up a lot of the cast and crew because, I mean, given the circumstances, there was, originally, Ian McKellen was approached for the role before he was given the role of Gandalf for the Lord of the Rings films at the time. But of course he turned it down, being Dumbledore. And that is where Richard Harris stepped in. That'd be the old Weasley owl, Errol. Oh, poor old thing. Now, I wouldn't think, now the book wouldn't actually have this, but I think it's kind of a heartwarming situation given that, of course, it's kind of like the moment where Hagrid's name is cleared and that he is deemed innocent. I mean, after all, word goes around Hogwarts very fast, even when things are supposed to be kept hidden. Well, can't always be the case, and it comes to show that in such the case with Hagrid being wrongly accused and then finally having his name cleared. Now, we are now transitioning into Prisoner of Azkaban. Once again, I thank you all for listening to this commentary, and for those of you out there, I will be having you hear me again.